The Raiders make promotions and additions to the current coaching staff. Who does that affect and what does that mean? That plus more on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for November 6th, 2024.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making this show the first listen of the day. We do appreciate you. If you're checking us out on YouTube or wherever you get your favorite podcast from, it is all good. We definitely appreciate that. I tell you all the time, 2 minutes, 22 minutes, 32 minutes, whatever the case may be, we appreciate it when you spend it with us. So we shout out my man Ari, who does a great job making sure we're on YouTube each and every day. If it wasn't for him, we would have no Locked On Raider podcast YouTube page. So definitely shout him out. As a matter of fact, I got to shout out Ari because, well, my dad's able to check in on the show each and every day by way of YouTube, gets a kick out of it, being able to check out the show on YouTube. So, Ari, thank you so much, man. Me and Pops, we keep that connection going, and you help us out with that. So thank you so much for that, my man. And, of course, anyone who chimes in and checks out the show at any given point of the time. We do appreciate that as well. We've got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693 coming up as we close out the show today. We'll get plenty of feedback because, as you know, there's always something going on, even in the bye week, when it comes to the Silver and Black. So we'll get your feedback, your calls, and your texts. That'll be in segment number 3. Segment number 2, we'll take you inside the Raiders locker room. What does it feel like? What does it mean to players when coaches that were coaching them up, that was their position coaches, when they get removed from their position? You'll hear from one of the leaders of the team, Nate Hobbs. You'll hear from him in segment number 2. Plus, I'll ask that same question to Lincoln Kennedy, a guy that was a guest on my radio show on Tuesday on Raider Nation Radio 920, Unnecessary Roughness, a longtime offensive lineman in the league, did a fantastic job with the Silver and Black, and is now part of the radio broadcast alongside Jason Horowitz. So you'll hear him in segment number 2 as well. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, as I always do, and we'll jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of this show, which is Prize Picks. Right now, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. I'll tell you more about them. Matter of fact, coming up after segment number 1. But let's go ahead and jump into the news and notes of the day. And on Tuesday, the Raiders made it official like a referee's whistle. We thought that there was a chance that these moves were going to be made. We just didn't know if it was actually going to be just reported on or if it was something that was going to be made official. And on Tuesday, the Raiders did that. Interim offensive coordinator, interim offensive line coach, in addition, a senior offensive analyst. So they sent out the email. They sent out the information on Tuesday. They named Scott Turner as their interim offensive coordinator, a longtime coach in the league, Joe Philbin, as the interim offensive line coach, and even longer time in the National Football League, and I don't know exactly if he's how much longer than Joe Philbin, but Norv Turner, at the age of 72 years old, is going to be the senior advisor on the offensive side of things. All that was announced on Tuesday. Scott Turner was previously the pass game coordinator with the Raiders. He came to the team in 2023, following 3 years as the OC for the Commanders. He played quarterback at UNLV before beginning his coaching career, and he's also had time with the Carolina Panthers from 2011 to 12, and also 2018 and 2019, and the Cleveland Browns in 2013, and the Vikings from 24 to 2016. So he's obviously had plenty of experience in the league, and he's had the actual offensive coordinator and the play calling duties back in with the Washington Commanders for a couple seasons as well. So he's now the offensive coordinator. He's going to be the play caller. So when they come out of their bye week, they start preparing for the Miami Dolphins. It'll be Scott Turner making the calls. As far as Joe Philbin goes, he joins the Raiders this season as a senior offensive assistant. He has nearly 4 decades of coaching experience. So you know what? He actually has more time than Norv Turner. But 4 years as the head coach of the Dolphins. He coached the offensive line throughout his career. He was with the Cowboys for 3 seasons. He also was with the Green Bay Packers from 2003 to 11 as an offensive coordinator from 2007 and 11. Returned to Green Bay in 2018 as offensive coordinator and finished that season as the interim head coach in Green Bay. And then the man of the hour, Norv Turner. He returns for his second time with the Raiders. He was their head coach back in 2004 and 2005. The seasons did not go very well, just want to let you know. But he is one of the most respected minds in football. Began his career in 75, served 15 years as an NFL head coach with 3 different teams, offensive coordinator with the Cowboys. He won 2 Super Bowl championships. He helped them win 2 Super Bowl championships. was the head coach of the Washington then Redskins, and I guess, Washington Redskins, and also the San Diego Chargers from 2007 to 2012. In recent years, he's been the offensive coordinator with the Browns, the Vikings, and the Carolina Panthers. And yes, he was the head coach of the Silver and Black, as I mentioned, for 2 seasons, and it did not go very well. So we talked about it on Tuesday. Right, we talked about that there was a chance that was going to happen. I didn't have Joe Philbin in the mix, but I did have Scott Turner as the play caller, and I had Norv Turner because Jonathan Jones from CBS Sports said that there was a chance that the Raiders were going to hire him. I was just wondering what he was going to bring to the table. So when it was made official, Tom Pelissero was the first one I saw from NFL Network. I thought, that's interesting, and I quote tweeted that out, and a lot of people were like, well, what's interesting about it? Oh, this sucks. This is stupid. And I was like, look, I don't know what it is. Because as I said on the show on Tuesday, I don't really know what he brings to the table and what he can do to make this offense better in the middle of the season, right? I mean, he's a senior offensive analyst. Okay, that's cool. He's going to collaborate with Scott Turner. Okay, that's cool. But, I mean, you're still working with Luke Getsy's playbook, right? Unless there's somehow, some way they can all of a sudden influence the playbook and add some of their ideologies and thoughts into the playbook and the game planning. And I don't see it. I don't see it just that quickly. But, again, that's why they're in that position and not me. And my job is to observe and talk about it. So I know I can do that. I'm not too sure exactly what they're going to bring to the table, but okay, that's what they're doing. It's only a couple days into their bye week, and they've made multiple changes already. And look, I would not be shocked or surprised if that's not the last move that's been made. I do think at some point that the quarterback's going to be named, and I think that's going to be Desmond Ridder when it's all said and done. But with that being said, I had a good friend of the show, Cynthia Freeland from the NFL Network. I had her on my radio show on Tuesday because, one, I know she knows Norv Turner really well, knows Scott Turner really well, knows all the things that they've been able to do in the National Football League from an offensive side of things. Plus, she knows Antonio Pierce to the point where she was a roommate of Antonio Pierce at one time. And she was really the first person that put me up on game that Antonio Pierce had the potential to be a head coach with the Silver and Black. Nobody knew that it was going to be as quickly as it happened. That's when he was still a linebackers coach. So had her on my show, and we started off by me asking about the Raiders' 2-7 overall record as they're in the bye week and what she sees from an analytical point of view, because as I call her the analytical queen, she does numbers really well, even has a show on YouTube, The Numbers Game, that if you're an analytical type of person, I'm not deep into analytics, but she is. If you are, you should definitely check that out because she does a fantastic job. But, either from the analytical side of thing or just the eye test, what has gone wrong with the Raiders while they're sitting there at 2-7 so far this season?
I mean, the reality is unless you have that quarterback position solved, you don't really have any reliable source of wins, right? Like that is just the one sentence answer right there. There's some other things we could speak to, but reality is the quarterback position, the offensive structure around it, trying to figure out what are the best strategies for, given where the team is and where they could be going, like how do you want to finish the season? What do you need to see from the players to evaluate how you enter free agency and in the draft? That's kind of where I think that they are right now.
And Antonio Pierce really well. I asked him on Monday about his confidence level that with the rest of the season, because there is plenty of football left, that he can get this thing turned around with these players that they have. How do you think he goes about trying to accomplish that?
Well, we saw it today, right? Restructuring the strategy around what's the system for the quarterback position. I mean, we don't know who's going to be playing that position necessarily, but it's narrowed down to a couple of choices only. But ultimately, trying to, like you bring in a Turner system, I say it because both Scott and Norv are, they're one and the same in terms of what kind of strategies they want to run, and seeing if they can execute those. And the people who don't execute them, they will be, the people who are no longer on the team. So I think that's the way that they're strategically working on this, is to bring in a system that, with a very time-honored tradition, coach, execution plan, playbook, all of it, and then see how it works from there.
I was in Costa Mesa. You were in Costa Mesa. Norv Turner was in Costa Mesa, and you had an opportunity to speak with him, and I know you highly respect him, and he's highly respected around the National Football League. How do you think, as a senior analyst, he kind of collaborates with his son, Scott Turner, who's now the offensive coordinator and play caller, to try to get this thing figured out? How do they implement the Turner system?
I mean, they go for the tenets that mean the most to them, right? Like, I would expect the run game to look a little bit different. Obviously, you don't have the Davante Adams. Things are going to look a little different in the pass-catching game, but, ultimately, it's how do you create the right system of run first and figure out how to create a lot of different options on each play, make them kind of look a little bit, similar so that defenses don't really know what you're doing, and then teach the structure of that from there. So to me, it's trenches and run game first, and then move forward from there.
How do they improve the run game? I mean, Joe Philbin now is going to be the interim offensive line coach, and obviously he's got a lot of experience with that as well. But how do they kind of switch things up from what they've been doing mid-season and have success?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is going to be figuring out where the offensive linemen need to be to structure what they want to do, how they can overcome some challenges in the offensive line game, and how the quarterback can best set up what he's seeing from the defense in order to implement the right sorts of runs in the right situations. Not just the coach who sees a lot, but the quarterback needs to be able to ultimately make the final decision.
There you go. That was Cynthia Freeland from the NFL Network, just talking about what's gone wrong, what she's been able to see from a distance. Also talks about Scott Turner and Norv Turner and what they believe, or she believes, that they could bring to the table. And, there's a heavy emphasis on the run game from head coach Antonio Pierce to Norv Turner and Scott Turner. They definitely need to have a solid run game. And I'm interested to see if Joe Philbin, as now the interim offensive line coach, who's had a lot of history and a lot of success coaching up offensive lines, can he get these guys where they need to be? One, they haven't had any kind of cohesiveness because they've had so many injuries. They've been having so many guys in and out of the offensive line. You really can't just get any kind of continuity. They've got to find a way to do that. They've got to find a way to get back to the blocking scheme that works for them. I'm a bigger fan of the power blocking scheme as opposed to the zone blocking scheme, but that's for them. That's for the smarter people to figure out, not me. But I am interested to see what Joe Philbin can bring to the table, and if this Raiders offense looks any different coming out of the bye week as they take on the Miami Dolphins, not this Sunday, but next Sunday down in South Beach. But that's what I got for you right now. How about, what is it like in the Raiders locker room? How do the players feel after moves have been made like that, especially to see coaches that were their position coaches no longer with the team? We'll hear from Nate Hobbs. We'll hear from Lincoln Kennedy, longtime offensive lineman. We'll hear from them in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple great sponsors here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, including the Ultimate Pro Football GM. And I know, Raider fans, you got to remember that partner, right? Well, I'm glad if you do. And if you don't, that's okay, because they're back. And they've added an amazing new game mode that I got to tell you about. The game that has you step into the shoes of a football franchise GM and lead it to glory now has a new head coach career mode. So not only can you be Tom Telesco, but you can be Antonio Pierce. And I guess how you're looking at it, you might say, yeah, Q, I don't really want to be either one of those guys at this stage of the game. But if you want to go ahead and take on that challenge, you can. On top of getting to build your dynasty by drafting players, signing free agents, and hiring a coaching staff, you can also get to call offensive plays during games as well. So now you can be Scott Turner. So you'll dig the new tools you can work with, such as individual training camps, upgraded negotiation system. This is a fun and realistic game, and it just got a whole lot better. So if you're already installed it, great. Be sure to update it so you can try out the new mode. If you haven't done it yet, that's okay. Download it right now. It's a must-have for all football fans. You're going to love it. I know you're going to love it. Trust me. The Ultimate Pro Football GM is completely free. That's the best part of it. Has no ads, and it's 100% playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. And just for you, Raider Nation, all Locked On Raider podcast fans, and only Locked On Raider podcast fans and listeners, can use the promo code Locked On NFL, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your franchise. Make sure to get it, as this perk will jumpstart your play and give you the advantage you'll want in creating a dynasty. Now, I got to admit, other listeners of different podcasts can get it as well, but I just like to think it's exclusive to us because we're special. I'm just saying, that's how it is. You want to download the game, visit ultimate-gm.com. That's ultimate-gm.com, or look it up in the App Store. Ultimate Pro Football GM. Start your dynasty today. I also want to tell you about Prize Picks. And as you know, Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions with a B of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Matter of fact, Prize Picks, you can win up to 100 times money with as little as 4 correct picks. And it's the best way to get in on action on sports in over 30 states, including Cali, Florida, Georgia, and even Texas. Right now, they put all their members first, and they always have, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you get your money in as quick as 15 minutes, and they now offer Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. So right now, what I need you to do is sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So what do? How do you get in on that? It's simple. You just download the app today. Use the promo code, it's all one word, lowercase, Locked On NFL, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use the promo code Locked On NFL. It's all one word and it's all lowercase to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to take you inside the Raiders locker room, and I really want to do that as they had an open locker room on Tuesday. It was the final day that they're going to have media as they go into their bye week. And so, everyone obviously wasn't available. A lot of folks don't want to be there and talking to the media. They just want to kind of get away, shut down, and, just kind of rest and rehab during the bye week, and they don't really want to deal with it. But Nate Hobbs was, he was kind enough to give some of his time to local media on Tuesday, and you'll hear from him in a hot minute. But the reason I want you to hear from him, and this is one of the questions that I had as all these moves were starting to take place and take shape throughout the course of the bye week, I thought, what is the player's responsibility? Like, how do they feel when they see their position coaches no longer with the team? And, one of the main reasons I wonder this, because I remember how I felt when my boss, David Smoke, was let go of his position at ESPN Central Texas. He was my program director. He was the guy who gave me an opportunity to do sports radio, and he taught me a lot, right? And so when he got let go, I kept thinking, like, wait, what did I do? Even though I know I didn't do anything, I knew I did everything I was supposed to do and then some, right? And everything that he wanted me to do, I did, and I continued to do after he was gone. But to me, there was a part of me that kept saying, man, I feel like, I'm somewhat responsible for him not being here anymore. And I know, again, it wasn't all me. It was him and ownership, and that's fine. Those kind of things happen, but I felt terrible. So that's just something minor, right? That's just me and radio, and I can only bring that to the table because that's all I know. So I can only imagine what these players that are playing this, this awesome game, this gladiator sport, right, for a king's ransom, who grows so close, and it's like a brotherhood and a family, and sometimes like a father figure to them. I can only imagine what they feel like when these guys that they've grown these relationships with are no longer there because of the performance that is taking place on the field. As Lincoln Kennedy always tells me, Q, coaches coach, but players play. So if the players don't go out there and execute, it doesn't matter how good your coach is. You can have Vince Lombardi. If they're not out there performing, it's not going to matter. So I want you to hear from Lincoln Kennedy first. He was a guest on my radio show on Tuesday. He always is on Tuesday and Thursdays. On Tuesdays, he reviews what just happened the game before. So on Tuesday, he was talking about the Bengals game. On Thursday, he'll be talking about the upcoming game. But as you know, there is no upcoming game. So we'll go ahead and give him Thursday off, and we'll catch back up with them as the Raiders start to prepare for the Miami Dolphins. But I asked Lincoln Kennedy straight up about the players feeling responsible, to coaches being fired, being let go. So here's my question, and there's Lincoln's answer from my radio show on Tuesday. Check it out.
What is the reaction in the locker room from the players when they see coaches that a lot of them were being coached up by those guys no longer with the organization?
It's different strokes for different folks. And the reason why I say that is because you can imagine, Q, if you were a player in that locker room and you've seen this much dysfunction in the sense of the not being able to win football games, the frustration that's mounting, because everybody wants to be successful. Nobody gets up in the work and say, you know what, I don't give a damn what happens today. I'm just going to go through it. It doesn't work like that. So everybody wants to be successful. So we do know that. But it depends on the individual and the maturity of the individual. I think what we've seen so far this year is we've seen a classic case where you've got a star that no longer wanted to be a part of the team, wanted to jump around, use his ability to go somewhere else, so he's out of there. But you do have another star who's, fighting like hell to stay and trying to make this thing work. And so the reason why I bring those two examples up is because depending on the player you are, either you want to jump ship or you want to save and fight the good fight. That goes with coaches too. Coaches have got to be capable. So we're looking at a point where players are walking in the locker room unsure. You don't know if you're going to run the same offense or similar type of offenses if you're an offensive player. You don't know that. Only thing you know coming into this is that we've lost 5 straight as an organization, and the season's not going to go any quicker if we don't find a way to win football games.
I thought that was a really good, detailed answer from a guy who's been in the trenches, literally, and a guy who's been in the locker room, and a guy that's been there, done that. Again, I don't have any kind of experience with that. I wouldn't know what that feels like. I can only relate to what I can relate to, which is, radio, podcasting, whatever the case may be, and it's not on the same level as an NFL locker room. So let's go inside the Raiders locker room and hear from one of their leaders, Nate Hobbs, who's continued to grow. He's in the final year of his deal. He's been a consistent, really good player, especially in that slot. That's not an easy position. And the one thing I really love about Nate is he always makes himself available to the media, regardless if it's a big win, a big loss, a tough loss, whatever the case may be, always makes himself available. And he did that with the local media on Tuesday. Check it out.
I feel like, of course, when you lose, it highlights everything. You know what I'm saying? Everything's put under a microscope. You know what I'm saying? If we would have won a couple of these games that we lost, I feel like they'd be praising the DB. You know what I'm saying? But, like, it's not that. So, at the same time, bro, we do need to be better. You know what I'm saying? We've done good things, but that's not good enough. We haven't been winning. It's not good enough to be winning. So, details and strength.
Even though it's not your side of the ball, what message does the firing of the offensive coaches send to this team?
You got to come in here and earn it every day. If you're not producing and doing what you were brought here to do, you know what I'm saying, and what was envisioned before the season started, then you can't be replaced. This is NFL, they say not for long, so never get complacent.
How's your ankle feeling?
Nice question.
What can you say about Jack Jones? Obviously, when you went down, there's a larger load on everybody else, but Jack kind of played well. What can you say about Jack?
That's Jack. Jack is a baller. Jack, he's every game he bound to catch fire. I said, he got a pick six. Y'all better not go back at him. You know what I'm saying? They did it and they paid again. So.
Nate, you've been with this team through a lot of different adversity on and off the field in the last few years.
So,
where it's at right now, where does it rank 1 to 10 with the other things, and how does this team overcome it by the end of the bye week?
I'm not about to rank it 1 to 10, bro. I feel like, that's elementary. I just feel like I've been with this team through so much, thick and thin, bro. It's just football at the end of the day. That's what we get paid to do. That's what it is. Our profession at the end of the day is football. I've been through so many things off the field with this team, you know what I'm saying, as well as on the field. But long as it's happening on the field, we got a chance to change that narrative, bro. We get to come here every day. It's not life and death. It's not, sickness and health. It's football. So.
Nate, what's your message on how to keep this team from getting complacent? It's a word that you mentioned, so what's your approach?
I think things happen in life to show you who you are and where you are. And sometimes they humble you, you know what I'm saying, as a man, as a person, and make you feel like you aren't who you thought you were. And it's on you to respond. It's on you how you respond. You know what I'm saying? So, how are you going to respond? It's mine. That's how I'm approaching it. That's my message. Because like I said, it's football, bro. And football exposes you can tell a lot about a man by the way he approaches his game and the way he finishes. So.
Nate, what do you think is a good, maybe realistic goal for the team to strive for the rest of the season, the second half of the season?
It sounds cliche, but every man coming to work to do their job, to execute their job, you know what I'm saying, and do it to the best of their ability. I only say that because I know when this team does that, how good of a team we are. We that same team that beat the Kansas City Chiefs. We the same team that beat the Baltimore Ravens. You know what I'm saying? We that same team. So if we could come with the details to do our job every single day, bro, and to execute. And I have no doubts about what we'll do in this next stretch of the season. You know what I'm saying?
Nate Hobbs in the Raiders locker room, and I thought he kept it real and raw. I really did. I think that you would appreciate what he had to say right there. And, I love the fact that he takes his time and pauses and thinks about his answer. It's not just one of those he has to respond real quick just to get it over with. He's really thinking about his answer and, talking about, looking into the mirror and talking about, just going out there and playing and what are you willing to do and how much are you willing to sacrifice. And, Nate is a guy that was, a fifth-round pick, multiple years ago. He arrived with the Raiders with a chip on his shoulder. You heard him respond to the question about where would you rank, what you've seen with this team, 1 through 10, where you at right now. And he's like, I ain't going to do that. He's seen some things. He really has. He's seen a lot in his short time in the National Football League. But he is a veteran now. He's in the last year of his deal. And with this team, as I mentioned before, it's never dull. There's always something going on. Unfortunately, there's always something going on that you really don't see coming or you don't understand it while it's happening. There's been more bad than there's been good. Let's put it like that. So I don't blame Nate for not trying to rank, like on a scale of 1 to 10, just, hey, look, there's been some stuff going on. So I can definitely appreciate Nate. Hopefully you did as well. What is on your mind? Your calls and texts are coming up next. We close out the show, 707-654-4693. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a great sponsor here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, which is FanDuel. And, tackle NFL action. You need to tackle NFL action. You need to do it with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, all new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, and it's all in one place. If you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view the live play-by-play, and so much more. It's all on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. And again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel. It's an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your time to shine. Your calls and texts off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's get this call in from Zach from SAC. That's Sacramento, California, calling to ask a question about Antonio Pierce and the team moving forward as it relates to this tough season. Here he is, Zach from SAC.
This is Zach from SAC. Oh, man, tough season. I had a quick question, just curious, your thoughts on it. So obviously, I know you're a fan of AP, as am I. Obviously came in last year. I think a lot of Raider fans obviously loved him right away, completely embraced the Raiders culture. And I'm 31. I've been a fan since I was a little kid. It was great seeing that, that old school Raider mentality. I loved it. I fell in love with it. Tough season so far. I'm not one of those guys saying, we need to fire AP. I was glad we kept him, as much as it would have been cool to see Harbaugh come. Who knows if that was even a possibility. But I was glad to continue with the continuity and keep AP around. With that said, obviously this season's very rough. I'm curious because assuming the rest of the season goes how we all kind of envision it going, if you're going into next offseason, you have a top 5, maybe even top 3 pick. You're sitting there saying, okay, we're going to be able to get one of our guys. We could possibly, get Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward's going number 1 unless he bombs during bowl season or the combine. I think he's going to whoever gets the number 1 pick. But assuming you have a top 3 pick, you're sitting there saying, okay, we're going to get either Cam, we're going to get Shador, we're going to get another quarterback that's probably going to blow up the combine that happens every single year that comes out of nowhere. You're going into the offseason. You have a top 3 pick. You have $110 million cap space. You have 9-10 draft picks. That's a pretty attractive job opening for potential head coaches. Do you keep AP at that time? And once again, we don't know how many games we're going to lose. We don't know how we're going to lose them. We don't know any of this. I'm just getting at if you have the potential to get a guy such as Ben Johnson from Detroit or, another up-and-coming, potentially great offensive-minded head coach, do you still stick with AP, or do you say, hey, look, this is our time. We have everything set up to get one of these potential big-time coaches. Do you go for it? I'm on the fence, man. I love AP. I really want to see him here for it to turn around, but, just curious your thoughts, man. Let us know.
Zach, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. And I think that's a good question, a fair question, right? I think I could give you the best answer I could give you is from a standpoint of I hope it works out for him. I really do, right? I'm a very much supporter, I guess that's the best way to put it, of Antonio Pierce. I think he's the right guy for the job, but he's got to prove it. And, if I'm in the front office, if I'm Mark Davis and whoever else is involved in that decision, AP is going to have to show me why he and his staff can be trusted to make the right moves, right, and the right hires. I mean, he's got to, I guess, put a plan in place, I guess, and say, hey, this is how we're going to go about it. Right? I mean, look, the players, he hasn't lost the players in the locker room. I do not believe that. I don't think the team has quit on him. I continue to see them work really hard. The one thing I had asked John McClain something similar to that on Tuesday on my radio show, and he said, look, I don't think AP is going to get fired, but his team has to show why they wanted him to be the head coach. They have to continue to show fight. They don't necessarily have to win the games, but they have to play hard. They have to look like they're prepared. They have to look like they're ready to go. Be disciplined. Not doing silly stuff off the field, which they're not doing that. Obviously not doing dumb stuff on the field. They have to be, a well-oiled unit where the ownership says, okay, they'd be playing a lot better if they had the proper pieces in place, like the quarterback, like, these defensive players that are out on injury, like a big-time dominant offensive weapon, like a Devontae Adams was, right? That stuff like that. Like, that's what he was telling me. And so, again, John McClain, I like to lean on people that have been around the game a lot longer than me, and that's what he said that he believes ownership is looking for. But, again, that's just a gut feeling from a guy who's been around the league. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what Mark Davis, Tom Brady, and the others that could be in charge of everyone's future, what they're thinking as well. But thank you so much for that call. I do appreciate you. Up next, I got a pretty lengthy text here. There's a text from Benny in San Mateo. He says, hey, Q, it's Benny from San Mateo, California, calling in just to give my 2 cents about the season so far. I mean, a lot of Raider Nation are on the same boat about exactly what needs to be done in order for us to have success. And I know a lot of people are already or have been asking for AP to get fired. And I don't know, a lot of people might not agree, but the smartest thing is to have patience. I know it's been a while, and a lot of people might not want to wait a year or two until he gets it right. But I honestly, truly think we're a franchise quarterback and offensive coordinator away from being a good team. I mean, if you look around the league, all the teams that are successful have those two main things along with the defense. But all in all, I just think that what I'm saying is we should have a little bit of patience with AP. We got to remember it's his first time being a head coach. And like you said many times, coaching in this league is not easy. So he's still figuring things out as he goes. Something this team does need to have is continuity. I know a lot of us are losing patience because we just want to flip the page and start winning all of a sudden. But remember, we got to build a strong foundation that takes time. I know you used this example before, but look at Dan Campbell in Detroit. His first season or first few seasons weren't all that successful. But once they were patient with him and they let him assemble his team together, it started clicking, and look where the Lions are at now. I know they played cards with the draft picks and everything, and hopefully with Tom, hopefully with Tom there at the Raiders, now he could put his 2 cents in. I know this is a long message, so hopefully this will make it to the show. Look forward to seeing what you think about my thoughts. Peace out. That's Benny and San Mateo. Thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you, and that's what I've been going back to. And I know it's hard to, practice and preach patience, right? Because it's been over 20 years since the Raiders have been, a consistent, strong, dominant team, right? It's the early 90s when they were that team, or early 2000s. I was about to say early 90s, but yeah, late 90s, early 2000s when they were a really dominant team under John Gruden and when they went to the Super Bowl. They haven't been that. Since the Super Bowl loss to John Gruden, they've been to the playoffs twice, right? And that's not going to cut it, 2016 and 2021. The fact that I know that between the Super Bowl back in, 2003 to what it is now, 2024, that's a shame. So I understand why Raider Nation is impatient. I get it. But, like you said with Dan Campbell, he was there. He was consistent. The other thing about it is he was very consistent with his coordinators, right? With his defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, with Ben Johnson, who's one of the hottest commodities now in the league, right? They were all consistent together. And clearly that's not going to happen with AP because they got to get new OC, They still have their defensive coordinator, which is great, but there's still so many moving and shaking along the offensive line and offensive coaching staff in general that it's going to still take time to all be on the same page. So, again, I'm not in charge of what decisions are going to be made and who's going to make them. I'm interested to see what it looks like and what the criteria is going to be, and how much say-so maybe Tom Brady is going to have or isn't going to have on this Raiders organization. We'll find out sooner rather than later. But right now, for Antonio Pierce, the most important thing is to have that team prepared each and every week, and them go out there and fight and leave it all on the field every single game. That's all they can do, is give it everything they have and let the chips fall where they may. Thanks for the call, or thanks for the text. I do appreciate it. Up next, I do have a call from Dominique from the Show Me State. I used to say it all the time. Show me, man. Hey, show me, man. I used to say it all the time. No joke. Anyway, he's calling to give his thoughts on the promotion of Scott Turner, the offensive coordinator, and the play caller, and also the hiring of his dad, Norv Turner, as well. Here he is, Dominique from the Show Me State.
Hey, Q, this is Dominique from the Show Me State, brother. What's going on? Just got a quick thing. Everybody wanted Luke Getsy fired, but I'll be honest with you. With Scott Turner, I don't think things will be different at all. Nothing will change, in my opinion. Scott Turner was a terrible OC in Washington. And then they bring in Norv Turner, who is, I believe, 72 years old. He's another washed up, has-been old guy that we're bringing in. I believe the game has passed him. He hasn't coached in the NFL in God knows how long. I don't think he'll be much help. I just think it's just a clown show. Bringing Norv Turner in here and promoting Scott Turner, this won't change anything as far as offensive woes or, it won't change anything in my opinion. Let me know what you think. Have a good day.
Dominique, thanks so much. I do appreciate you. And, yeah, maybe Scott will be better. I don't know. He wasn't great in D.C., as you mentioned. But I'll take a wait-and-see approach because Luke Getsy was really bad. So I don't think it could be too much worse than that. So we'll see what it looks like. It's still Luke Getsy's playbook, so who knows what they're working with. Maybe Norv can help, insert some of their thoughts and their ideologies and their plans and their plays into it and make it a little bit more creative. That's the one thing that the Raiders offense has really lacked all season long is creativity. I'd like to see them get some creativity. So it's been, I don't know, it's been a while since they've had that offensively. And as far as Norv Turner goes, I mentioned it on Tuesday's show, talked about him earlier in the show. You heard what Cynthia Freeland had to say. It's been a long time since he's been a really successful offensive coordinator, right? He's been removed from the game. I guess my big question is how much has he been paying attention? How much of the new ideas and concepts can he help add into the mix? And how much does Scott Turner have as far as that's concerned, right? So those are all questions that I have moving forward. But thank you so much for that text or call. I do appreciate you getting the calls and text confused. We'll close out with a text. How about that? I won't get that confused. A text from Chef Raider says, Q, Raider Nation, it's your boy Chef Raider. I was hoping you could settle an argument for me. Okay. If they were the only options, would you rather trade for Anthony Richardson or Bryce Young? Q, while you're in Connecticut, holler at your boy. Let's grab a beer and chop it up. That's Chef Raider. Thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you. And I don't know if I'll even have time, man. I've been here on campus the whole time I've been here, right? It's either the Doubletree Hotel or campus or the Doubletree. Like, that's all I've been doing the whole time. The good thing for me is they do have a little cafeteria downstairs where they have some nice little eats. And since I'm doing early shows and then doing my local show, I actually get a time and a chance to enjoy that. But back to your question, which is most important. Anthony Richardson or Bryce Young? I honestly would go with Bryce Young over Anthony Richardson just because he has more experience. I know that he's short. I know that he's slight built. I get that. And that might not work in the National Football League. But at least he has experience. And he's shown that he's been successful. He was successful in high school. He won a national championship in college. He won the Heisman in college as well. Like, he's had a track record of success. Anthony Richardson has had a track record of being a big, tall, strong athlete. That's it, right? The one thing that was knocking him in college was, lack of experience. Only had 13 starts. And he hasn't had many more starts since he's been in the league. So for me, if I had to pick one of them and the trade deadline passed and the Raiders didn't make any kind of moves, they didn't trade anybody out or bring anybody in, which is fine with me. It's kind of what I expected. I would have gone with Bryce Young as opposed to Anthony Richardson. I think that both have an opportunity to prove themselves in the league, but Anthony Richardson's off to a terrible start. He's still a very young dude, but just because he hasn't had the experience and he can't stay healthy, I would definitely go with Bryce Young over him. But, at the end of the day, we talk about it all the time. It's a numbers game. The numbers just might not work out for those two. They might not end up being the quarterbacks that any of us expected them to be. So thank you so much for that. I do appreciate you. Thanks for the invite again. I do appreciate that. I've been super busy since I've been here on the campus of ESPN. I actually traveled back Thursday morning, bright and early Thursday morning, to do my local show and also do game night on ESPN Radio later on that evening. So thanks for that again. I do appreciate you. That's going to do it for today's show. We got a call from Raider B in Minneapolis. We'll get that on tomorrow's show. We'll see if there's any more news and notes on the Raiders, what they've got going on. Of course, we'll have plenty of conversation as well. We'll keep this party rolling. As I say it all the time, even the bye week, there's plenty to talk about when it comes to the silver and black, and we'll get back at it on tomorrow's show. Until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.